What's up everybody, I'm Dan and welcome back to Backpacking Adventures. And guess what? I was tagged. So today I'm going to tell you what my favorite trail is and why. Hashtag my favorite trail was started by Brad from As the Crow Flies Hiking. He has a great channel with trip videos, gear reviews, and everything backpacking. This is actually not just a tag, but it is open to everybody to create a video on what their favorite trail is. So check out his channel, you won't be disappointed. How did I get into this? Well, I was asked by a YouTube channel, Pax-A-Lot. And Pax-A-Lot is another great channel. And I'll tell you, this guy is a beast when he hikes. He takes all kinds of gear and his channel is all about backpacking, hiking, and fishing. His channel is out of Utah and he just hikes all over the place. So I'm telling you, you need to check out his channel. Let's get into what my favorite trail is. I am located pretty much in the center part of Pennsylvania, and I mainly hike in Pennsylvania. And because of my location, I'm usually within anywhere from, at the farthest, probably 3 to 4 hours from any trailhead in Pennsylvania. And I am grateful for living in a state that has so many different trails to hike. Now, you probably already know that the Appalachian Trail does go through Pennsylvania, and from any point of that trail, I'm only within 2 or 3 hours. And I actually live within 15 minutes of a trailhead. I hike there a lot. I do a lot of backpacking trips on that trail, but it's not my favorite trail. And as a disclaimer, I haven't done all the trails in Pennsylvania. There still are plenty more for me to do, but out of the ones that I have done so far, my favorite trail is the Susquehannock Trail. So what is the Susquehannock Trail? Well, it is a roughly 85-mile loop that is located in the northern part of central Pennsylvania, and it just loops around the Susquehannock State Forest. It is actually part of and made up of many different trails. So you can easily shorten your trip, lengthen your trip, and make all different kinds of trips out of just hiking in the Susquehannock Trail system. And that is why it's actually called the STS, the Susquehannock Trail System, because it is actually a system of trails. This is a very diverse trail with a very diverse terrain. This trail is blazed orange, and it also has mile markers, which are very nice and relatively new. And from time to time, you will see an STS trail sign. You can access this trail from many trailheads all throughout the trail. And the main trailhead is located at the Northern Gateway, which is located at the Bureau of State Forestry headquarters. So they have plenty of parking there. And since it is a state park and there's a forestry building there, it's pretty safe to park there too, which is a plus. There also is an approach trail. It's about a half a mile to a mile, and it will take you to mile 0. The total elevation gate of the Susquehannock Trail is 14,142 feet or 4,300 meters. And it also crosses through 5 Pennsylvania state parks. And something I wasn't aware of until I hiked it is there are various shelters located all throughout the trail. And this is a very remote trail. There's not a lot of towns around the area like you have with the Appalachian Trail or other trails in Pennsylvania for that matter. And roughly a 10-mile stretch of this trail is located in the Hammersley, PA wild areas, which is very remote. And from what I've read is that the Susquehannock Trail is located in basically one of the darkest areas, I believe in the Northeast. So there's a very low light pollution, so it's very good for stargazing and telescopes in that area. The trail is maintained by the Keystone Trail Association, and I can tell you they do an excellent job at maintaining this trail. I did this trail last year in the later part of June, so if you're interested in the gear or the food or my actual trip videos that I did, I created a playlist, and I'll put a link in the description below to that entire playlist. So make sure you check them out. So why is this my favorite trail and what makes it so special to me? Well, there are many reasons, but I really like most trails that I do, and I really haven't found a trail that I haven't liked. So I like the trails for different reasons, but this one just stood out to me. And just because this is my favorite does not mean I'm saying it's the best or other trails are any worse than this trail. This is the one that just sticks out. First, it's a longer trail. It's 85 miles long, and so far this is the longest backpacking trip as far as miles that I've ever done so far. So there's something to be said about that, you know, I did accomplish something that I thought was, you know, something one day that I never thought I would do. So it's a big accomplishment for me. Now, I know there are longer trails out there, but so far this is the longest one I did, so I like it. I originally thought this trip would take me 6 whole days to do, but I did it in 4 days, with the last day being my largest day I've ever hiked, which was 30.5 miles. Another thing I like about this trail is it's a loop. It is not a point-to-point. And the longer trails in Pennsylvania, for the most part, tend to be point-to-point instead of loops. There's very few, at least that I know of, that are loops. And this is a big plus because I normally hike longer trails myself. So I can park my car at the trailhead, do my trip, and just go right back to the same spot. I don't have to worry about juggling cars. If I'm with other people, we can take one car. And I don't have to worry about finding a shuttle or an Uber or something to take me from one end of the trail to the other. So having it be a loop is just a lot easier for me. Less to worry about, less to plan. And plus the parking is at a government area, so they watch your car. And another reason is I did this trip with a tent. As you know, last year, early on, I kind of hung up my hammock to try tent camping for the whole year. And this was my first longer trail and trip for that matter in a tent. In the past, my longer trips and pretty much all my trips were with a hammock. And I liked that because my way of doing my trips is I would hike until I couldn't hike anymore or was tired, and I could find 2 trees and hang up my hammock and I was good to go, provided I was allowed to for that trail. But I decided to change it up last year and try to do these hikes with a tent, and I loved it. I thought the hammock was easier, but I didn't really notice a difference. I hiked until I got tired, I looked for a spot, and there I camped. And that's because there are plenty of campsites along this trail. Every few miles or so, there was a campsite somewhere, or at least a flat spot that you could camp. Another difference with this trail is I had a lot more experience with hiking longer trails, so I felt more relaxed and I felt more freedom when I hiked this trail. And I think a lot of that was because out of all my trips, I did the least amount of planning for this specific trip. And that was intentional. And I know some of you like to plan out your trips to the T, where you have your mileage planned for each day and you know exactly where you're going to camp for each day. I just don't like to do it that way. That's based on if I can do that or not, because some trails you have to camp at specific locations, or more so in Pennsylvania, there's areas where you're not allowed to camp. So you do have to have a little bit more planning when you do these trips. My planning basically consisted of reviewing the maps, looking for water sources to make sure there was adequate water, and to also look for bailout points in case I would have to back out for whatever reason. So most of my planning for this trip came down to the food. I just needed to know how much food I was going to take, which is determined by how many days is it going to take me to do this trip. So basically I took the 85 miles and I divided it by a conservative number of what I felt very comfortable doing given the terrain and not knowing the area, which I came up with 14 miles, and that came out to 6 days. But I did not plan on where I was going to camp, where I'd get water all the time. And sure, I did look, like I said, I did look over the maps, so I have some knowledge of the area, but I didn't plan anything out on where I was camping. I just hit the trail and I just made the decisions as I went in real time. And I actually loved that. That was very exciting. And it was also very kind of freeing because I could start when I wanted to start, end what I wanted to start. And I just kind of figured it out as I went, knowing that I actually had 7 days of food because I took 1 extra day of food, but I knew the amount of food, I knew how many days, so I just had fun with it. And that's mainly because I was not held to any kind of schedule. So, and that actually worked out because I ended up challenging myself every day, doing more and more and more miles than I thought I could. And I did that whole trail in 4 days, which I never thought I would do, specifically because I did get lost. I think it was day 2 or 3 I got lost, and I went the wrong way for a couple miles. I'm going the wrong direction. And that really added a lot of miles to my trip, so I never thought I'd be able to do it in 4 days. But I did it, and that was an accomplishment for me. Now, another one of my favorite things about this trail is that it was challenging. I would have to say this was the hardest trail I've ever done to date. There were plenty of hills, and some of them were so steep, I was kind of reaching out with my hands climbing up them. But there were also a lot of flat areas where I could just cruise along. And the terrain ranged from the woods to pines to open fields to sometimes on the road. It was just, and also right through a town. So it was very diverse and plenty to see. And there were spectacular views all throughout the trail. And it was so far the most beautiful trail I've ever done. Lots of elevation gain, over 14,000 feet throughout the whole trail. And that's a lot. I mean, it was a roller coaster up and down, at least a lot for me. But I did it, and it was worth it. And this trail goes right through a town named Cross Fork. And if you wanted to, there is restaurants there to get town food. There's a little store there where you can do a limited resupply. I do believe there's some kind of like hotel, hostel kind of thing, which you could stay. There's a campground in the area you could stay. I wanted to stay there, but when I got there, it was getting close to the 4th of July weekend and everything was booked, so I had to move on. The trail also goes through 5 Pennsylvania state parks, and one of which it literally walks right through. And the state parks have various amenities, so if you're gonna do this trail, look up what they have and see how to get there from the trail to see if there's something you would need to do or you wanna camp out at one of the campgrounds, which is a possibility. And one of the state parks I actually stopped at was the Oli Boli, I believe it's pronounced. I'll put it up on the screen on what the name of it is, but I stopped there and I had lunch at a nice picnic table. It was sunny, so I put all my gear out to dry because it rained the night before, my tent was wet, and I was able to dump some trash in the trash can, so it was great. And if I wanted to camp there, I could, but it was like their early days, so I just moved on. So that's my trail, and that's why, so far, it's my favorite. Now it's time to tag someone. Now I know this isn't a tag, but I want to throw this out there to a specific channel. And I figured I would throw this out to a channel that's on the other side of the world. And this person is actually a subscriber of mine. And the channel I'm tagging is Kaatje from Steps By Kaatje. She is in Belgium and has an awesome, awesome channel. Now she hikes in some of the most beautiful places I've seen, and she does a lot of challenges and a whole lot more on her channel. So please make sure you go check out her channel and make sure to tell her that I sent you. So let me know what your favorite channel is in the comments below. Or if you have another YouTube channel, make a video on it and then tag somebody and keep this going for Brad. If you like this video, make sure you like it and share it, and make sure you subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.